Hello, everyone. This is Akata Western. Thank you for coming back to the Rose of Venus. Today, I present to you a special guest, David Geddes. Well, he is in Adelaide, in Australia at the moment, but he has been traveling and studying extensively around the world, in New York, in Canada. He has been also in Europe, in Germany, and the Netherlands as a performer. And we are fellow astrologer, and so there is so much he can share regarding his awakening journey, even in the shamanic awakening journey that is, I find it so interesting. So let's present. David, how are you?
Akata, I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you. Very
Thank
happy to be.
you.
And just I'm really honored that you wanted to chat. And I really honor the energy that you hold in that space. It's really incredible. Really incredible.
Thank you. Oh, well, let's, why don't we start like, I have started to notice David because he has interesting posts, and sometimes he put a little clip of his performance in Facebook, and that really caught my attention. I mean, this guy is interesting. And so why don't we start with how you start with your acting career and what gets you interested in it?
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, well, there's a couple of things to unpack about that because I started acting. Well, really, I was inspired by my drama teacher at school. Really eccentric kind of guy. And he talked about an acting teacher, really, really big in the West, called Stanislavski. And Stanislavski had this, he's a Russian actor, and he had this philosophy about the actors should be these prime, kind of well-tuned, well-crafted individuals that could take on the problems of culture and be able to grow themselves and grow the culture. And Stanislavski particularly was interested in using, it was called emotional memory recall, using your emotions, using your own personal history to create an inner moment to do this process. And that really struck me because I wanted to improve myself. Now, there are many, little did I know that that was kind of a part of my soul blueprint as a way to kind of craft myself to have enough like energetic awareness and skill base inside myself to do a lot of grid working and kind of like timeline stuff. And it took a long process, most of my life to kind of like unlock that. And through the acting process, the bit that really, really struck to me, because I got into an acting school not long after high school. And I almost got into NIDA actually in Sydney, which is like the biggest acting school in Australia. But I wasn't quite mature enough for that yet. And at when I was studying this intensive, I was doing more hours than you would a doctor would each week at a university course. And it was the clowning. Clowning was the bit that got to me. I was like, oh my God, yes, I want that. And I didn't really understand why. And it's because the clown is so universal to what it means to be human. And this is partly what kind of ignited me at school when I started getting interested in acting. At acting college, clowning was the thing that really excited me, because clowning reflects the innocence of the universe. And it's almost like a primary archetype that we are all going through. Like as we go on the spiritual journey, as we're looking into galactic astrology, we're looking into the astral, we're looking at our past life, we are always looking at it ultimately through innocence. We're always looking at it through those eyes. And so the clown was really pinging my resonance with you know, kind of my soul imprint. And it was really activating my shamanic impulse. So kind of to keep moving forward, and studied at the Chekov studio in New York. And Chekov was a student of Stanislavski, and he had a completely esoteric way of coming at it. And he didn't kind of use emotional memory recall. He was about using creativity, using your imagination and your creativity to create a living moment. And there was something so profound that I cried when I heard about the description of that. And the school was held at the Steiner Institute. And Steiner is very big on esotericism and energy body type stuff. So that's really where I started getting very familiar with kind of the energy body and its sensation and my experience of it. And I then did a little bit more traveling and went to a clown farm. And we had a clown mama, and the mama birthed us. It was great. We had noses, we were rubbing dirt all over us and being like, blah, 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 just like all these ridiculous things. And I was pursuing all of these things creatively, including the Michael Chekov technique. But it wasn't until I had my third trial of fire, which I was telling you about, which was finally achieving what I wanted from my career, what I thought I wanted, that I completely broke down, because my soul was calling to a deeper part of myself. So yeah, so where did you want to go from here? Is that, yeah.
Well, I mean,
I could just talk forever.
well, sometimes when we go into our journey, how we start, we all have this mysterious situation, like, you know, why that happened to me, right? That, you know, when you saw these two person in the forum and so, and somehow our body broke down, that let us know that what we are doing in our life may not be necessary what our soul is calling us to do. And well, so once this happened, that you realize that what you were doing might not be necessary what your soul was calling. And how did you find your way back to the deep essence of your soul?
Through pain and suffering.
My goodness. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Yes.
As it always goes, you have to know what you don't want, often, to find what you do want. I have a Pisces moon in my descendant, and I'm a Sagittarius. So my sun and my moon are square. I've got this constant conflict, and my emotions and that sensitivity and that kind of clairvoyance is at the part of myself that I see the least, that I seek for most in others. Yeah. So that kind of, it's like, so that's why the clown also appealed to me, because I really, unfortunately, have no other choice but to make peace with the fact that I am constantly going to be falling over. I'm in constant conflict. And so that clown aspect was essential for my being and my awakening. And in that space came this show called the Nicola and his Traveling Lux Concordia. And I was a spirit scientist from the future coming back to the past to remind you that you are creating the future here in the now. And it was kind of this existential comedy lecture where I had this dialogue between science and spirituality. And the funny bit was that I still had so much to learn about myself. I had all these self-sabotaging programs going on. That show and that process completely broke me. I was completely overexerted. I didn't know how to look after my body. There was all this stuff that I wasn't looking at that I needed to look at. So my body was just really, really letting me know. And I completely lost myself in that process. The intensity, the hours, the fact that it wasn't my show, like it was someone else's design. Brilliant, brilliant show design. Very interesting, very clever, what it does with the technicalities and the puppeteering and stuff. But I wasn't being creative. And so I forgot who I was because I hadn't learned how to create a foundation for myself. And that led to a lot of drugs, partying, sex, trying to all in the endeavor, like, well, I'll find myself in there somewhere. No. And from that anxiety, which got really, really intense, I just decided that like I have to sort this out. I have to stop. I have to bunker down, and I actually have to articulate to myself what was going on. Because the main problem was that I was just beginning to be swamped with like extrasensorial experiences that I just could not fathom. And I hadn't quite clocked yet that what I was experiencing wasn't what the other person was experiencing. And that creates a lot of social problems. On one level, when I felt very comfortable with it, I could create these amazing experiences in the other where I could see them, I could see their soul, I could see it's like, oh yeah, you are here to express that aspect of the universe. And I could see it so clearly and I could honor it. And it was beautiful. Like I could really just wake up that part within them, and people really loved it. And of course, that's what also really attracted me about performing and acting is being that kind of facilitator of a transmission. But on the other hand, when I didn't do it, I became a very disturbing presence for people. People were incredibly intimidated by me, or thought me like really selfish, and I felt kind of selfish as well because I was so overwhelmed. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to be feeling this at all. I want you to get away. And that really is a real repugnant type thing, right? Such are the trials by fire for the shamanic impulse. So I had to sort this out and I had to articulate it to myself. And the real turning point was I had been kind of abusing some drugs, very intense drugs. And I had a lover at the time and he dumped me. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to stop this and I'm just going to fast, almost as a kind of a self-abuse. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise because then I started researching into fasting. And I felt really good. I felt really good. I felt very peaceful and I just started detoxing. And I forced myself to meditate and I forced myself to create habits for myself to regulate this and just build on something to kind of move into a positive spiral instead of a negative one. Because the
Okay.
negative one had been brewing for some time. And God, and that was a very precarious time, because when you're in that, you're like, you could make this, or you could miss this completely. And if you miss it, there's
You
no
lost.
guarantee that there's no guarantee that you're going to get back at all. No guarantees.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying. That is so terrifying, particularly when it's in yourself. The disgust I had for myself was so intense. I wanted to tear off my skin. It was just yes, but the clown was always there, so it carried me through.
You know
And
what, David, your experience is, I think many of us have more or less the same journey, even though we experience that differently. We were searching outwardly, right? So we ask from the outside world to validate who we are. And somehow our body tells us, no, 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 you are not doing something that is good for your soul. And even that abuse of whatever that is, drugs, sex, or sugar. And I myself, for 20 years, I was allergic to pollen. And through that, I have been taking so many medicine, quote unquote medicine, that totally destroy my body. So that's the drugs in a way for us to numb what is inside us. Until one point that you can't take it anymore, and when you decide that choice point that you were talking is so important. It's not like after that miracle happened, but that was that moment when you make the intention with every fabric of your soul. That's how things turn around.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was going to say. That point, exactly, the power of intention. I mean, it's almost like you could just stop talking there. It's like that's all you need to know at the end of the day is the power of intention, because that was the real lesson. Because when I recognized the power of intention, the world was available to me. Life was available to me. All and any possibility that I desired for myself was available to me through the power of my intention. Oh, and this was the power of fasting as well, right? Because fasting engages autophagy. It'll destroy cells that aren't working, recycle the material, and build new cells. It is the quintessence of death and rebirth. And that's what I needed. I had so much energetic programming and trauma stored in my cells. I needed a space, and I needed to connect with the authenticity of my nature as a body. And which is something that I struggled with a lot. Even though I did a lot of acting, I had so many health problems, and I was so adamant. It's like I was so disciplined trying to solve it all, but you won't solve it until you found the answer that you need. And that's what took me deeper and deeper into understanding about the energy body.
Well, the fasting part,
It's like,
I attest to it. Like I regularly do liquid fast.
Hmm.
Oh, that is so good. And after the first day, that the human mind can't comprehend what you are doing. But from the third day onwards, oh, like I can go on forever with the liquid fast.
Is that juices or just
juices, water,
juices? Yeah.
tea, herbal tea, and or broth. Since I'm a Chinese, I am into broth. That for us, all these medicines that we put in is just saving grace for our body without needing to digest anything, and you have all the substance that you need. And yes, I think that is to listen to our body. The need there is so important. We tend to give away this power once again to the external.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that is exactly what that whole process was changing for me. It's like after I had that fasting experience and I started setting an intention, I had one activation which completely changed my mindset. Not, there was the autophagy, understanding that my nature is designed to heal, to thrive. So I can trust my nature now. I can actually trust that nature has something intrinsic in it that's not going to let me down, that is a factual, observable thing, right? And then on the spiritual level, I was a couple of days after the fasting, I was listening to a recording by Terence McKenna, who he's a psychonaut. He did lots of magic mushrooms in the jungle and he articulated it very well. He has a huge base of material. And he described the shaman as a middle point between a scientist, an artist, and a healer. Like this is a shamanic awakening, that what I've been experiencing, what I've been doing with this grid work in like Germany, like many other places, all this imagination and intuitions that I've been having is actually based on something. It's actually something there. So I had learned to trust my body, and then I had learned to trust my soul. And then after that, as I start looking more into this impulse, I learned to trust my spirit. And kind of the workings and the flow of life. And yeah, that's when I started not surrendering. I started reclaiming my power. Like you said, I stopped giving in to this gaslight and I started trusting myself more. Yeah. And that's kind of how I came back on my path from there. And with that power of intention, everything kind of just went step by step, and it's been going deeper and deeper and deeper. And yeah, eventually that took me to galactic astrology. Well, actually, I the next turning point of coming back onto my journey, because once I had learned all of this, I became extremely righteous.
Oh.
Extremely righteous. Which was good because it was very much about claiming, coming back into my center. Righteousness and pride is not a negative thing, because it's also it's actually a very, I feel, a very angelic quality. It's angelic because it pulls you into your axis, which is your light, which is your center, the essence of self. It's your axis mundi, right? So pride and righteousness has that. The thing is actually, and this is what the metaphor of Shiva is, the dancing Shiva. The idea of the dance, if you look at that, like he's got his center, but the dance of life is you have to become unbalanced and then find your balance again. And that's the yin yang between dark and light, right? So you need your pride and your righteousness to come to your center, but if you hold it too much, you stagnate. And that that is exactly what I did. By a really beautiful twist of fate, I had during lockdowns in Australia, I was helping my friend move to this tiny town in the middle of nowhere. And we went down a lot of rabbit holes, and I got very righteous at the unfairness of the system and how abusive it is, and how gaslighting, and how it undermines people so much that they don't even know that they're being undermined, so that they doubt themselves. It's insidious. It's very deep. And it was during lockdowns, I flew back. I decided it was time that I needed to come back to Adelaide. And I didn't want to comply with what was going on. My radical perspective have put everyone in danger. And I have left them at a profound level unacknowledged for their experience. And that was a huge key in my spiritual awakening, right? Once I had let go of my righteousness, even though it was based in truth, it was based in whatever, and I let go of the need to be right in this space, that's when I opened up to love. And when I opened up in that space, after like 2 weeks of kind of recovering, I lost so much weight in there as well. I had a toe infection, antibiotics. Oh God, it was just, yeah, it was a crucible. It was very intense. But very shortly after that, that's when my past life memory started coming to me, because it was my righteousness was inhibiting my frequency. It was actually stopping me from allowing to feel, be open to love. And yeah, it was about a year after that, I got into galactic astrology, and I started validating more of these experiences, and my spiritual journey just kind of progressed on and on from there. Yeah. So, and now it's coming to a place where it's beginning to distill into my creativity, and this impulse are now starting to crystallize into ways to manifest. And that leads to the pieces of art that you saw. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of a long-winded way to answer your question.
Well, I think it's so interesting that that it's good to see how one comes through different stages of consciousness, arrive to who we are today, right? That is no obelisk. That is this generally misunderstanding of awakening is obelisk. We have to stay everyone up there, which is totally nonsense. Totally nonsense. And to experience what our real world or the matrix that we are experiencing is part of the journey that you going through, that righteousness you call. But what's a necessary step for you to come past to arrive in the middle path, right? And you can't all be bliss, and you can't all be right or wrong. And then somehow, if we look at our chart, our natal chart, it's like the north node and the south node that somehow have to come together to become who you are, right? So, but the decision that you have made to be on the other side of the quote unquote law and order is what make you claim your sovereignty.
Yes, that was what the righteousness was. From the existential level, that was true, that was fair, and that was just.
Yes.
From the how do we live in this world wisely,
It's another matter.
it was is another matter.
David, I think one point while I was listening to you that was so interesting was we in social media we meet in people in social media, right? And we have certain of image of this person, and somehow something clicked, and then we start our connection, like me and you. And since we also have a common ground to fall into from galactic astrology, and but we only know so little of a person before we really hear the story in our life. And while listening to you of your experience as actor and all that, one thing during this period with my galactic astrology, one point that fascinates very much to me was how we connect up, how our soul bring back all this essence that we have life after life, and somehow we just use it here, integrated. Sometimes we don't even know why we are doing certain things. And if we really want to get into the characteristic of galactic astrology, while you were talking, that was the connection with Hydra. For instance, I have my Neptune in Scorpio. Even without looking at galactic astrology, is already to some extent representing the shape shifting. We shape shifting all our life in different situations. We bring out a different us to people that we are dealing with, right? At school, we are something. At work, we are something else. And I can say we are all actors at the end of the day.
Yes. Yes.
And this Hydra is actually the serpent, the one that shred his skin, and it's connected with my Neptune. And I have it also in my Sun.
Oh, wow.
No
As
wonder I'm
a
doing
case
this.
or an aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and so yes, and how you how you view your path in galactic astrology, and bring it into your into your creativity world.
Yes, yes. So the galactic astrology, it's interesting that the Hydra connection, because you mentioned something earlier and I looked it up, and I also my I can my connection with Hydra is my MC, my MC. And so it's very interesting, this dialogue with how everything is connected, and Neptune also just went retrograde as well. So it's quite interesting, and my connection with my MC is a sextile.
All right.
So yes, so I wonder, I do wonder if our souls have met before at some level. And
Oh, we don't meet by incident. No.
and this was what was so beautiful when I had my heart opening in prison. Oh, I was in prison on my 30th birthday as well.
Happy
I'll never
birthday
forget.
then.
Thank you. It was a beautiful, humbling lesson. And I felt I ended fire and I began the journey of water, and I began the journey of like remembering and love and living, really. Like really living as who I am. And that's what, so as these memories came back, a lot of it was processing, a lot of karma after Atlantis, which was very intense. Like I had many, many, many lives of insanity and being a murderer and just really like psychologically kind of twisted stuff. And as I kind of worked through that, and I started anchoring in the process and learning to process the karma from that, because I had really now gotten to a point where I could appreciate that this was the momentum behind everything that's been unfolding. And that now that I've kind of been able to articulate it to myself, I just like went, I'm just going to just process. And it was a lot of processing, because I had also been getting a lot of like ET memories. And these were experiences where I wasn't a being. I was like a humanoid, but I wasn't made of flesh. I was like plasma, like crystalline plasma. And but basically I had created a bunch of runes, and I had made a little sculpture which kind of was like a transmission center. And I would go to markets and I would sit, I would invite people in, do readings, and I would help them decode through these runes what is the subconscious impulse that is arising for them. Because I was very inspired by crystal dreaming and its integrity of just being a facilitator for people to have their own experience so that they can link their conscious mind to the subconscious. And this is what resonated with me so much with galactic astrology, because it did that, and it gave more clout, ways to kind of validate these intuitive impulses. And I had asked myself kind of during this healing process, when I started the healing process, actually I'd called in some Arcturians. I'd asked them to help me with my physical health.
And you are asking where our connection is.
Yes, I had asked them. I don't have any connections with Arcturus in my chart, but I knew that they were masters of the physicality, right? And that was an interesting journey. They led me to Imagine Dragons, the band, and then that started this whole other chain of events that really started a healing impulse. But it was at that time, this was not too long after the bungalow and my kind of Melbourne event. I asked my soul, okay, where am I from? And the first thing I got was Andromeda. I'm like, oh, what's Andromeda? That's like a star or something. So I looked into it. I didn't know there was a difference between the Andromedan constellation and the Andromedan galaxy. But I had got the Andromedan galaxy, and the vision I had at that time was of like two funnels, kind of like two synapses in a brain, kind of like that golden funnels. And in between was like this golden city. And it was like a synapse between the galaxies, right? That the galaxies were these different neurons in a larger brain. And that's, so I got Andromedan galaxy. This is the image of where the two galactic frequencies are intermingling, because and I kind of knew at that point that whatever I was feeling, that's where I started to articulate that memory of this plasma crystal being was actually from Andromeda. It wasn't actually from here. And then I started to put my life story into a greater context when I learned that Andromeda is destined to collide with the Milky Way.
Yep.
And so that there is actually this intergalactic exchange, almost like lovers embracing each other, but at a greater celestial level, it's like the two polarities of Kundalini. Because what I have in my memory of what I can from and that experience in Andromeda is that it is a highly creative, cooperative, synergistic place with real kind of radical, crazy creativity. And then the impression that I've learned from my experience of the Milky Way is that it's almost like sport. Like this galaxy has this genetic, physical experimentation that is so intense. That's why there are so many wars. Like you think about the Orion Wars and things like that. It's because this is like, it's like a petri dish of an experiment of like which force is going to battle out. So it's highly competitive. So you have this highly cooperative creative space and this highly competitive. And I realized that, oh my God, they're destined to collide with one another. And so there is, and I feel particularly on Earth and with like Andromedan galaxy souls, it's like we are learning how to take the best of, we're learning to alchemize, basically competitiveness with creativity, right? And cooperation. And my Venus has a direct connection to Andromedan galaxy. And my Venus is in Scorpio, second house. And once I studied galactic astrology and I really got into the depth of my aspects, it really profoundly gave whole new meaning to everything that I've been through. And it really helped paint an inner standing that we are all part of the puzzle, and that we are all connected to the movements of the universe and the movements of the galaxy in terms of the story that they're telling. So what we live in our life is some angle, it's like a piece of the puzzle of that bigger story, right? And that we, in this dimension, in this experience, because we're all here together, just by our interaction and our relationships, we are writing that story, right? We are writing the galactic story. And there is no separation there, because the way things are connected are not by distance or time, they're connected by energy and frequency, right? If you have a certain energy or frequency, you can connect to anything from anywhere in time and space, right? That's what quantum entanglement is. So it's not about the quantity of something, it's about the quality. How are you living your life? How are you opening your heart? What is your intention? What is your feeling, right? And how are you writing the story? And so that leads to the kind of point that I thought we could wrap up on, like you said, about creativity, that it's our creativity, as I see it, really is the window that we can see the frequency and the nuance of our galactic soul and our essence, like you were talking about. And when you see people's creativity, like in a story or a set of characters or an expression or a particular nuance, habits, you can start to see these expressions, right? The universe is literally living right in front of us.
It is.
right, in every person. And that when you asked me to be a part of this chat, that's exactly what I felt when I saw you talk. It's like I felt the universe. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the strange things is like I'm doing this podcast, this series here. I'm not even the one wanting to do it. I just listens to the message that I receive from the universe. That is the next step. You go, you ready. And that's why I told you, like, after my first presentation, I was paralyzed on the floor for these ancient fears that we bring forward with us. With your past life memories that, we have gone through a lot. And the thing is, we are actually so much connected with the other side of the world. When we try really to listen to it, messages come very clearly. And every one of us is expressing it through different venue, capacity, creativities. And for instance, right, for that little that I see in your chart that you have this hijra in Chiron. So if you think about that, you have 6 dials. So that is a gift, abilities that you come as a multi-dimensional shape-shifting person to cure, to heal certain aspect in your life and as a consequences to the life that is around you. And Venus in Andromeda, what you need to express, your Andromeda essence, true love.
That's it. It's my MC is Hydra. My Chiron is Hades.
Mm.
Yeah. So my MC, it's interesting because the shape shifting is a part of what in a longer sense the soul is trying to embody, right? And that's definitely part of the Andromedan galaxy karma, right? Is that actually I'll tell you a quintessential sign, a nuance of an Andromedan galaxy soul is that when they talk about, I don't know, the profundity of their power or their character, like either they can shift timelines, they can rewrite a lot of things in the space. If you think of Star Magic Healing, have you seen that? Star Magic Healing with Jerry Sargent, doing the light working and that kind of quantum architecting. But it's when you kind of start speaking at that level to these souls, quite often they can get very embarrassed. That's a quality of them because they're galactic immigrants, right? So it's like not only you're in a completely different universe, right, to your previous soul history. And of course, as I went deeper into this, I've even gone back further, right? That there are different, we as souls, we hopscotch from galaxy to galaxy because we're always in a constant state of death and rebirth. Oh my God, there is so much more I could talk about all of that. But the real kind of thing that I thought we could wrap up on is that the self lives in the creativity, and it lives in your heart, it lives in your feeling. The heart is that impulse that tells your solar plexus, which is your ego identity, tells it what to do. So the heart and the solar plexus need to live in that yin yang to be your compass. You need to feel the impulse of the heart and let it guide and inform and educate this body of who you are, right? And that would be also you need to bridge the branches of your tree of life with your root. You need to bridge your soul history and your soul memory. You need to bridge it through your axis, which is yourself, to your roots, which is your genetic, biological ancestry, right? Which is this beautiful little melting pot. And that's what's so magic about the human experience, because it's really remarkable to think about. And it just gave this really sacred weight of appreciating who we are, right? And really appreciating what the universe wants to express through you, through that creativity. And that's where it's all at, right? The more you get in contact with here, and to the core of that, that's where everything lies. That's where the answers are. So.
One of my interview for the Rose of Venus was with my mentor. Her name is Jules Maloney. I think she summed it up very sum up this very complex idea in a very simple term, that is, if we think about God or source or the galactic centers, where we came from, our soul, that is part of the creator activities. And today we are here actually by the integration or the collide of Andromeda in Milky Way, that integration of the polarities at the end, right? We combined and mixed, integrate and melt all this together. It comes out as a creation. That is what we are doing now. And to create that final stage of consciousness, either that is through Christ consciousness that so many talk about, something else, depends. Each of us,
that is
kind of schools. Yeah. You say?
The you really remind me in what you say of the Kundalini, because the Kundalini, the two, that's what it is. It is the polarity, right? The electric and the magnetic, the positive and the negative, and they're so drawn to each other that they're constantly in this dance of trying to come to one another, because it is ultimately one thing. And that's why the toroidal vortex is such the universal image, because it just explains that you've got two poles, energy going out, coming around. And it's like that with the galaxies. It's like that with our relationships. It's like that with everything, because it's a fundamental thing. So the Kundalini, which is very much connected to your spine, is very literally a part of your axis.
Yes.
Right? And the more we get in touch with that, the, woohoo!
Hopefully. Hopefully.
It's amazing. Yeah, that is sacred. And recognize that your presence is the force of the entire universe, right? That's source presence. It's everything. So there is nothing that it cannot solve. There is nothing that it can stop it. So the more we honor that within ourselves, it's yeah. I don't know. We don't need to get anywhere. It's just good fun. Do it.
Well, to say it really in simple terms is as above, so below, and everything that's connect is our heart chakra. Without that, we don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yep. So with this, thank you, David. That was really interesting, and Thank you for joining me, and thank you, everyone.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.